Right now on UTV Underground, we shake down the Polaris General XP4 1000 Deluxe on the hottest day of the year in the middle of the desert. Unless you've been living under a rock for the past few years, you probably know that Polaris launched the General in 2016. And what they did is they created a new class of UTV called the crossover UTV, which was a combination of some of the award-winning technologies from both the Ranger side, the utility vehicle side, and the RZR side, or the sport UTV side. Well, they were marketed as both a sport and utility UTV that felt just as home on the trail as it was on the ranch. Their sales exceeded expectations, and in 2017 we saw the first 4-seat edition come out. Now, by 2018 the lineup grew to 8 machines, including a model with ride command and things like a 4,500-pound winch. Those all became standard options. The 2019 lineup was streamlined back to just 4 machines, but there were lots of improvements and refinements, including things like premium paint. Now this year, in 2020, we saw the lineup swell once again to 7 machines, including 2 deluxe models, illustrating strong sales and the growth of the crossover segment. Models available include 4 2-seat options ranging from $16,000 to $23,000, and 3 4-seat models starting at just under $22,000, going all the way up to $25,000. Polaris has the specs for all these cars, all that historical data, sitting on their website. Check out the link in the comments if you want to do some more digging of your own and really get into the specs of how the General has evolved over the last 4 years. So back in June, Polaris shipped us a nicely broken in deluxe General with about 600 miles on it, in gray with some of that cool Dukes of Hazzard orange. And you know, the deluxe model comes with a roof, a 4,500-pound winch, a Rockford Fosgate audio system, ride command. It's pretty well set up. So we were pretty stoked to get that machine and plan some shoots with it, take it out on the trail and break it in. The 4-seat General is 64 inches wide and just over 150 inches long. From the outside, it has the same look and feel of a nice 4-door mid-sized truck, say like a Tacoma crew cab. The 30-inch tires are what really set the General apart visually though, and they serve a purpose. They handle the trails and the dirt better than anyone else in the crossover class. I mean, pretty much everyone else is running a 27-inch tire or less. This is a huge advantage for Polaris. It's by far the best looking vehicle in the class as well. The Yamaha Wolverine and the Cowie Terex 4 both still feel too upright for our taste, and the Honda Talon and Can-Am Commander Max are simply not as well refined on the exterior to us. The General also has the nicest dumping cargo box in the class right now, just ahead of the Commander. This machine just looks and feels like it's ready to run right out of the gate. It's very well proportioned, and the exterior plastics feel rock solid to the touch. You can see and feel how solid the car is right away when you walk around it. Another feature we love is the accessory bar. This is something Polaris introduced a few years ago, and it's absolutely killer. Essentially, it's a power station that allows you to add accessories like lights and light bars and audio components after the fact with a breeze. Now, of course, Polaris has a lot of accessories that plug right into the accessory bar, so it just makes customizing your vehicle that much easier. The General Deluxe has a 1000cc ProStar 4-stroke engine with dual overhead cams and twin cylinders. Now that's the same tried and true electronically fuel-injected 100 horsepower motor with automatic on-demand all-wheel drive transmission that Polaris has had so much success with these past 10 years or more. Most of the competition is at or near about 1000 cc's and 100 horsepower, but Polaris does have the technical edge on the spec side right now if you go look at all of the competition. That being said, it does weigh more than any other crossover UTV. General's coming in at over 2,000 pounds, so some of that power advantage is going to be equalized by the weight. And we'll get into how the motor feels, especially under a full load in a minute, but suffice to say this vehicle has a lot of power and is very responsive, even under load. The towing capacity of 1,500 pounds, pretty standard for the class, and the payload capacity of nearly 1,300 pounds, well, that just means the General is ready for most hauling tasks and amply suited to cart around 4 adults. Now on the suspension side, let's remember, the smoothness of a ride is really a combination of suspension travel, the wheel and tire size, shock setup, and the clearance of the machine. And it's here where the General really shines. The 30-inch Pro Armor tires, Walker Evans Velocity Series shocks, and long travel, high clearance dual A arms all combine to equal 14 inches of suspension travel, which is best in class by 3 inches or more. This again is a feature that Polaris nailed, and it surely comes from their research and development on the RZR side. Now we may end up seeing a dynamics version of this machine down the road as well. And you know, hey, 64-inch stance makes this vehicle feel stable. That's the width of the vehicle, outside tire to outside tire. It's not so wide that you get hung up on tighter trails, and we actually like that extra width. But of course, be sure to do your homework when you're measuring for your toy haulers, because it is the widest crossover in class. On the interior side, the General has come a long way. This deluxe model features a ride command system, a Rockford Fosgate stereo system, and obviously everyone wants to listen to their tunes when they're on the trail. The seats are firm, comfortable, and breathe nicely even in the heat, and the doors are by far the best in class, both because of their height and their finish. They really keep the dirt and dust off your body without obstructing airflow. They're smooth on the inside, so you don't end up banging your knees when you're on the trail. The steering wheel, steering column, instrument cluster, and gear shifter all feel robust, solid, and have a very logical layout. Now, none of this is rocket science, but you'd be surprised how many little things other OEMs screw up here. Overall, the interior of the General is fantastic. So for the past 10 years or so, we've been very lucky to have access to some amazing property in Ocotillo Wells. That's a 90-minute drive from our ranch here in San Diego, and it offers at least 4 distinct types of riding conditions. We've got sandy washes, tight, hard-packed canyon runs, wide-open desert hills, and some taller, narrow mountain trail riding. It's really the perfect place to shake down a UTV or any off-road vehicle because we can beat the crap out of it and we don't end up stranded in the middle of nowhere. We took the General Deluxe out on what ended up being one of the hottest days of the summer thus far and put it through its paces, and overall we were really impressed with this vehicle. One of the things we love about the General right off the bat is the seating position and the amount of legroom it has. We are constantly getting into and out of these machines with cameras in our hands, and the General is by far the best machine we've found for doing that. It's easy to work out of and comfortable on the rides. We also love the cargo bed because we can load it down with tripods, sandbags, coolers, and all the stuff we need to film with. This machine just feels good to climb into, put your seatbelt on, and start driving. There's no window or door netting to deal with. There's a navigation system and a stereo that syncs with your phone in a few seconds. The roof provides the shade you need, and the thing's got giant oversized mirrors and backup cameras to make maneuvering in tight spaces even easier. We spent several days hammering on this General, and one of our biggest takeaways was how well it handled the weight of 4 full-grown men and all our gear in the heat and still produced plenty of power. We hauled ass through the washes, occasionally bashing up or down one of the steeper sidewalls with 0 issues. We flogged the motor, got her up to 60 plus miles an hour, which isn't going to win any races, but it's still impressive for a 100 horsepower motor in 120 degree heat. We even stopped and worked with the winch a bit to test it out, and it was super easy to use. One thing we did notice after a few hours on the trail was a light vibration whine. It wasn't really bad, and it was probably something to do with the exhaust. It just needed to be tightened down. But yeah, that's pretty minor for a vehicle like this, especially when you're going that hard on the trail. Now, when we took the General into the tighter, narrow canyon runs, it did great. The suspension soaked up the whoops, and the steering is so responsive that it was really fun to rip around in. The guys in the back were not getting slammed around because we weren't bottoming out. We were all actually really surprised at how well the machine did in those conditions. Smaller tires or less clearance would have made for a much bumpier ride and sore backs. The 64-inch stance kept us from feeling like we were tipping over, but the General also doesn't feel too long like some of the 4-seat sport models. It feels snappy and agile instead of weighted down or like a boat. We stopped on the trail at one point and put some lead down range, and the crew was able to sit in the shade, listen to tunes, and enjoy a cold one while we each took turns shooting. Turns out, our boy Brandon is a better shot with his 40-year-old .22 rifle than any of us were with our handguns. We also stopped to play around with our Losi Mid 400 Baja Ray on the kids track before dinner, a great way to unwind after a long day of riding. We made camp for the night, swapped stories over burgers and dogs, and fell asleep under the stars. So what's the verdict on the General in this deluxe model? Well, Polaris pretty much invented this category, and it's only right that they should own it. Honestly, it just makes sense. For many of us riding UTVs, it's not about racing, it's about family and friends and getting outdoors. We want reliable, fun, and safe transportation for our loved ones and our gear. The General is ergonomically superior to anything else in its class, in our opinion. It's simply 99% ready to roll from day one. We would likely beef up the audio system, add in a radio and intercom, and maybe swap the seatbelt for a full harness, but none of that is really necessary to get out on the trail with this machine and have a blast. After researching this category backwards and forwards, we would highly recommend starting your search for a crossover UTV with the Polaris General. Get down to your local dealer, test drive the new 4-seat General. Once you sit in this machine and drive it, you'll understand why it has done so well for Polaris. We're looking forward to seeing what the boys in blue come up with for this platform in 2021 and beyond. We'll see you guys out there on the trail. Stay safe.